Good afternoon, YouTube. Home handyman here, and I had a request from somebody. Could I do like a portrait on wood with, the router and the tools that I have and stuff? And I said, well, I'm not sure. I haven't tried, but we'll give it a try this morning. So I got the picture right here, and we're going to try to transfer this onto wood. Now, we're going to do the old carbon paper technique here. Just going to lay it down like this. I have my line for my reference, and then so we have to center it and tape it. Give me just a moment, I'll do that, I'll be right back. Okay, this took me a little while to outline all this with a pencil. I had to keep sharpening it. I wanted to make sure I got all the details and stuff in here. And one of the questions on the forum is, how are you going to do all that detail work? You're probably going to have run over with the router bit, and it's probably not going to look right. Well, I got a couple of ideas, but we'll play around going forward. We'll see if we can make this work. The next thing I'm going to do is, I figured this is my border. I'm going to cut this with a skill saw. Then I'm going to take it over the drill press like you saw in the previous video, because they wanted me to notch these corners. And I showed you that jig I made. If not, I'll give you another still shot here in a minute. And you can go back and watch the I think it's on video 1 of making a wood sign. I showed you how to make a real simple jig out of scrap for your drill press to be able to do the same thing. So I'm going to pause the video, cut this, I'll meet you at the drill press, and we'll notch those corners. Okay, here we are back over at the drill press, and this is a piece of 3/4 inch chipboard, really is all it was in scrap. And I got some thin pieces of trim, and I put them on here, and I put screws into the wood, and then I used this big hole bit. Came down, I cut it out, and then I put clamps on this so it can't move. So now when you slide this in, it'll notch those corners out perfectly, and I'm going to go around all 4 sides and do that. Just a moment. Okay, here we go. I'll show you how to notch one, and then you'll get the idea on the rest. Now go up and down with this, and it'll prevent that wood from lodging in there. Watch. Shut it off. Boom. Out ejects the piece. So we're going to do all 4 corners. I'll be right back. Set the drill press up with this little round sander. And these are they're not expensive. You can get them at Harbor Freight. You can also get them at Lowe's, Home Depot. But for these notches in here, they're great for sanding these out quickly. Then you can use your random orbital on anything else. So I'll show you how this works. Like that, comes out nice and clean. And with these, you can change the sandpaper on that mandrel with just regular sandpaper. You use a pair of scissors, cut it out. There's a groove here it slips into, and it works fantastic. So for carving these out and sanding them real quick, here's another little shop trick for you. If you got a nylon brush, you can get them down at the dollar store. You can quickly clean these just like this, doing the least amount of damage to the sandpaper. But sandpaper is sandpaper. Don't try to keep thinking you're going to rejuvenate it. Once it stops cutting, throw it out. It's not worth doing, it's not worth trying to keep resharpening it. It's like I said in a previous video, pretend somebody gave it to you for free. It loses its cutting edge fairly quickly, but this will give you a couple of more sandings before you have to get rid of it, because it loads up. That's it. Clean enough for next time. I do it always right after I finish sanding. Okay, hang on. We'll be back to the table. Okay, we're back at the workbench, but I wanted to stop and talk about something real quick. The friend of mine that brought over the piece of wood, this is actually, I went out with him this morning to Home Depot, and we got this together. And I always say, look down the edge of this right here. Point it down at the ground, look down it, flip it over, do the other side. If it's warped, curved, you don't want it. The other thing I do is lay it on the ground, on the concrete floor, and see if there's any wobble or tilt to it. If you have just a little bit towards the very upper end, it's not a big deal. You can cut it off with your skill saw. For the most part, you'll have a nice flat board. A lot of these have some warping in the middle, and when you look down that edge, it can fool you sometimes, and you think, hey, this is a great piece of wood. You get it home, and you find out, well, you're going to end up cutting it up and throwing it in your designer firewood pile. So anyway, we got this one. The other thing I do is I seal it. Now, there are a lot of products out there that you can use for wood sealer. I have a can of Bullseye shellac. Okay, that's the Bullseye shellac. I don't want to say it's no good, but after 6-8 months, it definitely won't be that good. You'll end up throwing it out. So I usually don't buy big quantities of it. But I had this laying around. It's still somewhat good. I can use it to seal the wood. You can use lacquer, you can use anything you want to seal it. Polyurethane, whatever. It doesn't have to be something specifically marked wood sealer. And be careful, because out there they have products that have color in them and you may not want that. They have other products called wood hardener. They go into the grain and lock up the grain, especially on soft woods. You don't need that stuff. You can use pretty much anything as a seal coat. And with shellac, I don't mind using it because I know that I can apply any finish over the top of shellac. Okay, so I know that, so that's the reason why when I have it laying around I use it. Okay, hang on, I'm going to seal this and I'll show you. Don't have to worry about what direction to go in, go crosswise, up, down. It doesn't matter, because when you do get ready to use this, you're going to end up sanding it anyway. So I really don't care about what's on here. The big thing is get a coat on it. I even put it on the ends, okay, on the edges, the ends, everything. It's not going to hurt anything. Like I said, you're going to end up sanding it off anyway later. Okay, 1 minute, okay, I'll be right back to our portrait sign. I am going to do the same thing on the back of this board. I haven't sealed it yet because I kind of got in a hurry this morning to get the video going. Again, it doesn't matter. It's been sanded to about 120. Just like this. I'll let this dry for a few minutes and then I'll come back and we will start at the actual carving. Okay, we're back. I've sealed the back of it with the shellac. Here's the front. I put a router bit on there. It's a quarter round, I think. I had it on the router. I figured what the heck. And I went around this after you watched me sand these corners. It's a nice gentle curve on this all the way around. Now, I'm going to set up my palm router with a detail bit in it. And I'm going to router as much of this as I think I can without, well, we're going to see. I'm winging it right now on this portrait thing, you know. So let's set it up. Let's play with it. Let me see what decisions we make along the way. Never done anything like this before. So, you know, look, don't worry about screwing these up. The wood's pine. It was very cheap. The carbon paper's next to nothing. You sent the drawing to the printer. You're into this for next to nothing. If you screw it up, who cares? This is where you learn. So let's do it. Let's have some fun. I'll be right back. Okay, this is a picture of my Dewalt 611, and this is the detail bit right here. I'll try to zoom in on it so you can see it better. Okay, that's it, and I just have it set just a little bit. You can play with this. All you do is loosen the lock on it, and you can make the bit by adjusting the collar go up and down. Usually I use that wrench method I showed you in the previous video where I just set my wrench up to it. But I went shallower when I did the beard. It gave me a much finer point to do those, the hairs of the beard. We will see what happens. I'm letting it dry and then I'm going to sand it lightly and then we're going to do, well, we're going to play around. We're going to do a different kind of a finish on it. We'll see how it comes out. Okay, so I went over this with 150. Then I used a brush. It's a dollar store special. I scrubbed all over it. I used my air gun, my blow gun. I blew it off real good. The other thing these brushes are good for that you get at the dollar store is on my random orbital sander, I just go like this. Anything that got caked up on there, unless you picked up finish like on this outside edge, you can't really get that off. And I hit it with my blow gun and it lasts a little bit longer. We're going to set up, I'm going to use alcohol and trans tint dye. And I got my little Badger spray gun, which I'll show you, and we're going to play around with finishing the project a little differently than normal. So hold on, I'll get everything set up and I'll show you. So we've applied the black. Now we're ready to use that little Badger spray gun I told you about. Here's a picture of it right here. They're about $12, $15 on Amazon, and I use alcohol. So why use alcohol? Well, it evaporates real quick. I can keep going through my finishing process without stopping and worrying about drying time. So, how many drops? Well, I got this about a little more than 3/4 full of alcohol. I put 10 drops in there right now. It's too light, I can keep going over it. If it's a little too dark, it's okay because we are going to sand this coat with 220 when we're done. I'll show you the whole process and we'll see how this turns out. Now, I'm just going to lightly put a little into his facial area. Trying something different here. outline the outline of this a lot heavier, just like this. Go over it. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on that. And I might put a little here. There's a couple of lighter spots. All right, that's about it. Now, I'm going to shut this off, and then I'm going to mix up the same amount of alcohol and trans tint, but this time I'm going to mix it up with amber. Then when I'm done doing that, this will be dry enough for me to sand. So I'm going to go over it with 220 now, and I'm going to play around with the light and the dark areas. Then we'll go from there. So give me just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I've mixed up the yellow now. Now, I'm using trans tint. You can get it on Amazon. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I will again. It's fairly expensive, and it's about $10-12 for one little bottle, and they come in different colors. This one says bright red, so I got bright red. I got a bunch of different ones. This time I used Bordeaux, and I shot that on there and I sanded it off real good. Now I'm going to use yellow. Don't get it confused, because they got amber, they've got all different variations and colors. It's kind of hit and miss if you buy these for the first time and experimenting around to see which colors you like for finishing. I've got probably a little assortment of them. Think in your mind of the color wheel. Okay, you don't need all different variations. Get your basic colors. You can blend them, play around, and you can come up with your own different colors. Anyway, back to the project. You're going to watch me now. I'm going to spray it with the yellow. Now, that's not so bad at the moment. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to let that coat dry. Like I said, you could always add more. You can go back over it and fog it a little more with the burgundy or another color. Because you're using the alcohol, it'll evaporate immediately. And if you end up not liking any of them, take your sander to it and start over. So hang on a second, and I'll show you once this dries. Okay, so I shot one coat over the top of it just to seal the finish for the moment of Ultra Gloss Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch 2 times. It's about as much as the other stuff. Now, while I was out there, I got these little eye hooks. Put it in a vise or with 2 pairs of pliers, open them up a little bit. We're going to make a little chain, and I got this chain. 10-15 cents, not a big deal. All right, so far you're into this for hardly anything, so I'll show you what we're going to do here. Hang on. Now you can use whatever kind of glue you got laying around. I've got crazy glue from down at the dollar store, and I'm going to put a couple of drops on the threads here, screw it in. Now the crazy glue is going to set up real fast, so I kind of do this quickly. About right there, like that. So you got enough room to get that chain on there. Do the other side the same way. Now I did use a drill bit, real small one, to drill these holes, because you want the eye hooks to grab when you're screwing these in. So, and just like this, leave them alone. And the CA glue will set like in seconds. So just leave it alone. I'll show you what we'll do next. One moment. Okay, so then I put the gold chain over this side. All you got to do then is just get a pair of pliers, crimp it in so the chain doesn't come off. Use your finger right here and figure out how much you want. Well, that's pretty good, I would say, right there. Go ahead and crimp it shut, just like that. Get yourself a pair of wire cutters of some kind. I come in here, make sure you got your safety goggles, something on. There you go, that's it. You have a hanging chain that's ready to go. Now all we got to do is apply more coats of finish. To the project, and we'll be done. We'll see how it looks. Hang on, and I'll be back. That's after the first coat right there, so we're going to put on a few more. I just applied the second coat. I guess there's something I should mention. I saw a question on the forum that said something to the effect that the person that was using these rattle cans doesn't seem to have very good results. I don't know if this is the problem, but what I do is I'll spray this like this, and I overlap about 50%, and then I stay about 6 inches approximately away from the wood. When I apply the second coat, I'll turn it upside down, and I'll spray it the other way now, overlapping. If I do a third coat, I'll do it from this side, and I'll go like this, overlapping 50%, and the fourth coat on the other side. That way I'm hitting it at each angle. I do that consistently, and then my projects seem to turn out fairly good. So maybe you're spraying too close, maybe you're spraying too far away. I just took a look with a ruler basically a minute ago, and it's about 5 or 6 inches away. And then don't go real fast. I mean, you'll get used to a pattern of going, back and forth over it. It's just a matter of playing around and practicing. But anyway, it was a question on the forum. Okay, this is the second coat. Be with you in a minute. Okay, that's 4 coats, and I'll probably put 1 more on there, and that should make the whole surface pretty level. Turned out all right. Couple of places not as perfect as I would like them to be, but it was a fun little project. It gave me a chance to play around with the depth gauge on that trim router, trying different depths to do his beard and so forth. It gave me a chance to mix up some different colors in that little Badger sprayer and play around on the wood. You know, it doesn't always have to be, you know, white pine and black paint. So play around with it, experiment, see what works. Don't worry about screwing up. You can always sand it. Okay, let's see. Any questions? Let me look at my computer real quick. Now, the hooks and the chain you can get at any hardware store. It's nickel dime stuff. It's really easy, and I showed you how to open them up and crimp it shut, and you can make a nice little hanging. Okay, folks, I'm going to let you go now. Everybody give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you like the videos, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you.